Ladies and gentlemen, ballers and ballettes, strap yourselves in, tighten your jock straps, get ready to go ballistic with episode number 5.
Welcome, viewers, listeners, ballers and ballettes.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. We're happy to be back here with episode number 5.
What's the word for the 5th episode?
I would say a quintology, probably.
Sounds saucier and saucier every time.
You do realize we're not going to be able to hold this up until like the 723rd episode, which will be a heptasexta something or other.
Even your cancer will be so bored that it'll be like, for fuck's sake.
We've had quite a lot of feedback this week, haven't we?
We have. I mean, or you have. I don't get any publicity, but you get all the publicity in the world, which I'm very glad.
Well, you get to read the YouTube comments.
It said I tried to steal the show from a cancer patient. That's always good praise.
Absolutely.
That was the first time you said absolutely, by the way, in this episode.
Yes, as I mentioned last week, absolutely is the word that I keep saying, a sort of crutch is what we call it in French, that I keep using. So I'm really going to try to make that one the absolutely last one that I say. I will most probably fail miserably, though.
Are you trying to say that the word crutch is French?
No, just that it was the word my boss used to always tell me that I was using terms like absolutely, which I just said again now. He said I was using it as a crutch. It's sort of to fill in a blank when you don't know what to say, I guess.
So it's like in like English, like.
Most definitely.
Great. But yeah, you were interviewed by American stuff.
Well, yeah, that Reddit post we mentioned last week got a little bit of traction, and a few different people saw it. There's a web publication called My Modern Met, which did asked me a couple of questions and posted the pictures, and some people seem to like that. And then another place in New York, which was sort of more of a niche medium, called SurvivorNet.com, and it's actually about sharing survivor stories. Even though I haven't survived yet, they somehow accepted to interview me. I don't know how that works. So, but anyway, I had a half-hour Skype with New York to talk about my situation, and they wrote a really nice article. So that was kind of cool.
Very cool.
We've really started to get the ball rolling here.
Ba-dum-bum-bum. I mean, I noticed that the one of the New York publications called you Swiss, and you became pissed off.
I did not become pissed off, and it has been corrected since then. I'm not Swiss. I was born and raised in Switzerland. I've never taken a Swiss passport. My dad's Canadian, so I'm Canadian. My mom is Dutch, so if anything, I'm Canadian-Dutch, but I'm not Swiss, although...
Isn't it called Dutch-Canadian? Isn't that like a phrase?
No.
Well, good segment, Andreas.
Not that I know.
I'm thinking like Pennsylvania Dutch. Never mind me. It's early in the morning somewhere.
No, so I'm 100% Canadian, but I'm sure I'm Swiss in a few ways.
Referring back to me, considering I'm the second most important figure in this podcast.
I would say the third. It's me, my remaining testicle, then you.
Yes, I am definitely the supporting character, the comic relief.
You are more important than the silicone ball, though, I'd say.
Yes, but I'm also sort of like the cancer of the show, like an irritating element.
You've been irritating me for 12 years, and that's how I like it.
But yeah, in the last episode, I said the word moron like 29,000 times.
You did, which is funny, because you're usually a pretty creative insulter.
Yes, I behaved like a fool.
You behaved like a fool. What is funny is that Moron is actually a town not far from here.
In Switzerland.
When I went to the first radio interview a couple of weeks ago, I had to drive by Moron Village.
That is amazing. I'm guessing it's Moron.
It's exactly pronounced Moron in French and Moron Village, and then they have a really beautiful tower called La Tour de Moron. But if you see it and you're an English speaker, it just says Moron, Moron Village, and the Tower of Moron.
So I'm guessing moron doesn't mean idiot in French.
I have no idea what it means, but probably if you ever come to Switzerland and we do a live episode or something, we should film it up there.
From the Moron Mountain.
Yes, which made me think, we were talking last time about Disney movies with Let It Go. You could do sort of a Disney version of Rapunzel here and have the guy coming down to the bottle of the Tower of Moron, and he's like, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, throw down your hair. And she's like, I can't, you moron, I lost it to chemo. I'm not sure Disney would go for that anyway.
Yeah, ironically, no, that's Warner Brothers. Because Moron Mountain is from Space Jam. Remember Space Jam?
I remember Space Jam, absolutely.
The theme park in outer space was called Moron Mountain.
Perhaps, but it might be a good new style of Disney movies, Disney cancer films.
Yes.
Rapunzel losing her hair and then finding chemo.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful. By the way, this is interesting because I'm trying to have a conversation with you every week about this stuff. And I only just recently learned that I'm going to, what's it called when you go to have like, when they're going to check if there's something wrong with you? What's the English word? They're going to have like a...
Who's going to check though? Like your mechanic?
Yes. No. They're going to check if I have ADD, which is attention deficit disorder.
You're going to get diagnosed?
That's probably the word.
A checkup?
A tune-up.
A tune-up. That'll be the mechanic then.
No, but attention deficit disorder is kind of interesting. And that basically means that unless I'm passionately interested in something, I can't do it.
I just feel like you figure I have cancer, so you got to find something interesting about you now. But
yeah,
okay, Mr. ADD.
No, it's not going to change anything from one way or the other. It's just going to give me a pat on the back, saying, "Oh, at least you have ADD."
I thought you were preparing like a spin-off, and we'll do Finding Attention with Andreas and Joseph, the second show. What? Yeah.
What are we talking about? Who? Where? When? That would be fun. But yes. Anyway, I'm going to try to maintain focus here and talk about the topic at hand.
There are many other actually things, if we do have to do other shows. Somebody was mentioning on our YouTube comments that apparently, because we sort of questioned this last time, apparently once you've had testicular cancer in one testicle, there's like 2% chance that you get it in the other. So if I get healed and all this ends and we have got a great finale episode and everything is great, in 20 years there can be a reboot.
This is cool. And Hollywood loves reboots.
Oh, we know that.
What are the odds of me getting testicular cancer, considering I have 2?
With 2, I think it's roughly 1 in 250, basically.
I really need to cherish my balls while I have them.
Absolutely. Go find 249 other people and hope one of them has cancer.
And
then stay with
them.
them.
That's my task for the day. We actually had, we're not going to mention her by name, but considering she said, please don't make me a part of your show, we're going to make her a part of our show. But you have a friend who mentioned a free mammography. Is that the word?
Mammography, I think. I'm not 100% sure about the English pronunciation, but probably mammogram. A mammogram, that's it, not a mammography.
Is that like a thing on Mama, and that Mama has big tits and Mama's got cancer in her tits?
I think it comes from mammary.
Ah, damn it.
Whether or not mama comes from that word, I do not know, but we really do need to brush up on our Latin for this show. I had never thought that would be the case.
Maybe testicular cancer actually is called, you get a papography.
But anyway, yeah, so a friend of mine here who just turned 50, and in Switzerland at least, when you turn 50, you get a free voucher to go get your boobs touched.
Sometimes just because you need it, and sometimes because of cancer.
Absolutely. So she went in to do that. She didn't say she didn't want to be a part of the show. She said she didn't want to necessarily be invited in the show.
Well, she already is. Hi.
She's probably happy that we're talking about her boobs on the internet, though.
But yeah, she checked herself because we've been saying check yourself. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. She's not the only person. I've heard from a friend of my mom's that she was talking to her son who checked himself as well various times since. So at least some people have started doing it, which is good.
I can't get him out of his room. He's touching his balls all the time. How old is he? 49.
I'm just looking for cancer, Mom. Don't worry. Give me another half hour, please. And some tissues. One of my friends did mention one thing, as we've been saying for the past few episodes, telling people, check yourselves, touch yourselves.
Wreck yourselves.
Exactly. And one friend said, well, now I've been doing that basically every week, and he's been checking himself, and he said he's got a really good cartography of his testicles down.
Uh-huh.
But he did say, what am I looking for? Basically, you're looking for anything out of the ordinary.
Yes.
You should be able to tell if there's a bump, a lump, a stump, something or other on your testicle, and you shouldn't necessarily get too worried right away as soon as there's anything. There are lots of perfectly harmless things that can happen, but if you have any pain or if you have a lump or anything, you should go see your doctor or at least give him a call.
So for anyone who's wondering, your balls are supposed to be smooth as eggs. If they have like a Quasimodo kind of vibe to them, that's wrong.
Yes, and they shouldn't be in pain. Mine weren't really at any point, but sometimes pain can be an indicator for some people. So if there's pain in your balls, do something about it. Unless it's like immediately after getting kicked in the balls, you can maybe wait 5 minutes before calling your doctor then.
Which we all know is the worst pain.
At least for 50% of the world.
Yes, that's the eternal discussion. What's more painful, childbirth or being kicked in the balls?
And it'll never be solved.
Although we all know who's right.
Everybody knows.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of people I've spoken to who've either seen or heard the show that mentioned that it's sad and moving and touching. Not touching your balls, but touching in an emotional kind of way.
Yeah?
And I guess both of us are kind of not shocked, but we're not thinking of this as a moving show.
It is a little bit. I mean, we went for the humor side, obviously, which we were maybe even afraid that might be too far for some people. It seems to not be the case, and you're right. I guess just the fact that I'm really sharing what's happening to me seems to be touching some people. This morning, actually, I even got a message from the head nurse at the oncology ward who said she had watched the last couple of episodes and really enjoyed it and thought that it was quite nice the way we talked about the nurses and the patients. So I'm glad we at least didn't go overboard there.
We did, actually. We had a very long segment about slutty nurses, but you were like, we have to cut that shit out. And I was like, damn it!
Anyway, before I get into the medical side of stuff, there's also a few mistakes, as usual, that we made. We should probably start every episode by just correcting whatever was wrong last week.
Last week, everything.
Well, it comes from my dad. My dad mentioned, I made a whole spiel about talking about my clever Jeffrey Wright joke at the end of the thing. The comedian. The thing is, Jeffrey Wright is not a comedian. Jeffrey Wright is an actor. It's Stephen Wright is who I meant to say, and I got it wrong, which is, I guess, funny. Ah.
Imagine getting trashed on your own cancer show by your dad for not naming a local Boston comic's first name right. You're a disgrace, son.
That's true. At least he has good taste in comics, though.
True. So, Stephen Wright, we're sorry.
We were wrong.
Well, you were. I just didn't remember it in the moment, because I have ADD.
That's true. I also then mentioned that I was going to go have a PET scan on the Thursday. That was our big cliffhanger. And so, as I said, it was a thing. It was going to take an hour and a half. I was going to get injected. It was going to take a whole lot of time. And so I went in on the Thursday, and I just got a different kind of scan because it took about 10 minutes. They said, okay, come on in. We're going to inject you with this thing. Watch out. You may feel some heat. And at about 20 seconds later, suddenly my whole head got really hot. And then I felt a wave of heat go down my whole body, but really hot. And it lasted about 20 seconds, and then I was fine, and they turned on the MRI machine.
This is like another alternative energy stone, wish-wash type of mumbo-jumbo thing? Or did you actually become hot?
I actually became hot. I think your temperature does rise very quickly. It's not just that it feels like it, but it's very quick. It's just as this this tracer agent goes through your bloodstream, basically.
Is it like a cancer glow? You know how pregnant women are being told, oh, you're glowing.
Maybe I'll ask the nurse next time. I couldn't see myself, sadly, but that sounds, yeah, maybe.
Because you look very chipper. People who meet you are going to be like, you're glowing. What's wrong with you? And they'll be like, I have cancer. Oh my God, that's amazing. It looks so good on you.
I might use that instead of next time just saying, oh, it's probably the cortisone, which apparently gives me some color. But so, okay, I'll say it's a cancer glow. No, I like that. I like that a lot.
But I was just going to finish about the whole moving, touching element. Because it's very interesting, because so many people have said it. One of my closest friends, he said, I cried in the first episode several times. And I was like, okay, that's odd. And then I have a friend of mine who's a lady in her 40s. And she said, I couldn't watch it. And I was like, that bad, huh? And she was like, no, I felt so bad for your friend. And I was like, Joseph, why? And she was like, well, he might die eventually. And I was like, well, we're all going to die eventually. And she was like, maybe I'm not smart enough to understand it. Whereupon I just had to say, nailed it.
I'm glad you didn't call her a moron.
I couldn't. I've already overspent that word. So I said, you buffoon! Which is odd because she's Norwegian. So why would I say that? But anyway, we have one recurring segment in this show, which is oddly about cancer. How you doing, Joe?
Well, still doing pretty well, I guess. Well, I can say I've had very few side effects.
You're answering the same thing every week. We need some action. We need drama.
Well, I've had sort of the acidity, and I get the hiccups a little bit in the evening sometimes, but it's not so bad. Still haven't really lost my hair, although somebody did mention that it might be because it's so short, and if it was longer, it would fall out easier, sort of. I don't know.
But it's still not growing. Or have you actually shaved?
I shaved it a little bit. My beard was growing out, but mostly white, and I cut it off because I looked like cancerous Santa Claus. And so I just shaved it a little bit, but yeah, it hasn't actually. I have noticed a few little hairs here and there on my phone, on my stuff, so maybe it's starting slowly, and maybe it would happen more if I had enough to pull on or something, but
Was your beard as white as now?
it's hard to tell. I can't tell if it's just the white hair is growing out first, because it never looked so white, usually. But I think there were probably usually as many white hairs, and then some black in there. So maybe either the black ones are falling out, or they just grow slower, or I'm not very observant and I've got no idea what I'm talking about.
We've established that plenty of times that might be the case. But the reason why I'm asking is because a few episodes back, I mentioned that I had a week of steroids back in the day. And I have, as you can see, I have a blonde beard, also known as a basic bitch beard, also known as go shave, you look like you have pubes on your face. But anyway, during that week of chemo about 10 years ago,
It wasn't chemo.
Sorry,
dude.
my steroids.
Let's not get ahead of each other.
Steroids. During that week of steroids, my beard came out black, which means hormone changes are odd and weird.
Yes.
So that was why I was wondering if your beard came out white, because maybe you're turning into Santa Claus for real.
It's possible. I guess I'll have to wait till after and maybe grow it longer to actually tell.
When your hair comes back, what if you're like Steve Martin from now on?
Could be the opposite. It could have those curls I had on the set of pictures I did when I cut my hair. And my friend had put curls. Maybe they'll grow back curly. Maybe they'll grow back softer. Maybe I'll grow back an afro. Apparently, the hair does change after, so it might be something fun.
That would be awesome. Carry on. How you doing, Joe?
So still basically pretty good. And especially, I mean, we mentioned the PET scan, which wasn't a PET scan. So this time I went in, got that PET scan, which, as I said, went pretty quickly. And the next day I had a meeting with my oncologist, and so I got the results right away. Then I didn't really know what I was looking at, but he has sort of all the different levels, and he can zoom through your body. And so I had mentioned I had three little pieces of shit, basically, in my lungs. The cancer metastasized into my lungs. So I've got 3 little bits there, which, let's say they were this big before. They've gone down to this.
Which is great.
That's very good news. The doctor was very happy with that. It means I'm responding well to the treatment so far.
So your 3 little pieces of shit are now smaller pieces of shit.
Much smaller, I would even go as far as to say. Exactly. So they might just melt away during these next 2 rounds. Who knows? I'm not going to speak too fast, but they might just basically dissolve, so to speak, and disappear. Uh-huh. Then there's still, as we know, one against my spine.
A bigger piece of shit.
It's, I guess, a bit bigger. Yeah, it's a bigger piece of shit. It's also getting smaller, but not quite responding at the same rate. So it's not as incredible as, wow, it used to be a watermelon and now it's a pea or something. It's not quite that, but it is going down. He was still quite happy with that. And we're obviously going to continue watching what happens. So basically now it's do 2 more rounds of chemo, and then we'll do another scan. Don't want to say if it'll be a PET scan or an MRI yet, because I'll probably be wrong. But we'll do another scan for comparison again. And I guess what we're hoping is at that point, nothing left in the lungs. Mm-hmm. And in the spine, depending on what's left, is what will decide the next course of action. And I think the possibilities are either a sort of more specialized chemotherapy just for that, or potentially surgery, go in there, pull it out. And as I've already mentioned, these are surgeries that they know how to do and that work. So it could then possibly be the end of it.
I like surgeries where the surgeons know how to do it. That's my favorite surgeries.
Yeah, you're correct.
So it's been a week, roughly, since you had your PET scan, and you've had the 3rd week of chemo now.
Round 3 of chemo, as you say, started last Monday. It was the 3rd round of 5 days, once again as an outpatient.
Let's define that, by the way, because you've said outpatient about 20 times over this show, and I believe everyone who listens to it is like, huh? But outpatient means...
You go home at night, basically.
Coming out? All right.
As opposed to the first week of chemo, which was in the hospital 24/7 for 5 days. Here I go in at about 8:30 in the morning, get out at 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
So is the alternative being an inpatient?
Exactly.
In and out. Cool. Carry on.
And so I went in on last Monday, and I guess it was a bit different this time because I knew what I was expecting.
So it went well then. It was once again a comfortable week with no problems.
Well, actually, there's a twist.
Da, 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 da.
You made me laugh quite a lot when I told you last week that the scan went well and the results were good. I very much enjoyed your first response, which was, "Great news, Joe!" For you, not so much for the podcast.
I'm such an asshole.
So now you'll be happy to learn there is some bad news, sort of. Because that's what you want. That's what you're here for, isn't it?
I'm just thinking about the audience.
So anyway, yeah, on Tuesday, I walked home after the oncology ward, went up to my place. And this was the first inkling of something a little bit off. Just as I walked home, I thought I had a little bit of a chubby arm, my left arm. I couldn't quite tell. It just felt a little bit funny.
Like swollen?
A little bit swollen, exactly. Not too bad, and I just figured, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. Because as I've been told from everybody, anything out of the ordinary, I should let them know. And anybody who's going through this, I would highly suggest doing that. That's what I've been doing so far, and things have been going well. So even if it seems pretty benign, mention it. But so here I went home with my swollen arm, and it was fine all evening. Didn't think of it again. Went back to the oncology ward on Wednesday. Everything was fine. And then you'll be happy to understand to know that this little bracelet that you semi-mocked last time.
Mocked pretty harshly, but yeah.
On the Wednesday, I was lying in bed in the afternoon, so I'd already had the chemotherapy. I was just being hydrated with the IV stand. And looking at the bracelet on my left arm, I noticed it was a bit tighter than it should be. And I could see the indents of the little balls on my wrist. And so to look at it, I folded it, and I realized, oh, my arm is still a little chubby, which reminded me of the evening before. So I called in a nurse. I said, hey, excuse me, I think one of my arms is a bit swollen. What do you think? And she walked in. She was about 5 meters from me. And she said, oh, yeah, it definitely is. I can even see it's not the same color as the other arm. And so she very quickly said, I'm going to call the oncologist just a second. Went and called my doc. She came back, said, okay, we're going to stop the hydration right now because it's probably because of a blood clot. And I just had 1 more liter of saline solution to take. So she said, well, we'll stop that. We'll have you drink an extra liter of water before leaving. Then my doctor came in. He basically said, well, yes, on the scan that we saw, there was good news, but we also had seen there was a little blood clot right around here where I have my portacath. And he said, this is something, it's not great, but it happens, and they know how to deal with it, which is basically stop using the portacath. And so this happened at about 2:30 when I noticed my arm. He very quickly went into sort of, let me just call the radiology, see what can happen. And at 4 o'clock, I was sent over to the radiology because basically the doc said, well, we can't continue through the portacath. That could cause a problem. So we got to put in a PICC line, which is basically a catheter. They lay me down on this bed. I looked like Jesus because they put things on both sides so they could extend my arms. I have a tube now going straight into my arm here. And it's 45 centimeters long and goes all the way to somewhere close to my big veins here. And that took 20 minutes, and I felt absolutely nothing.
So they just shove it through your veins?
I am glad you ended that sentence with veins.
I mean, we've already established that none of us have any medical expertise whatsoever. But yeah, is that how they got it 45 centimeters in through your body? Or did they slice you open without you noticing and just put it in like a cord?
No, it's basically what you said. So which I was kind of surprised. So they give you some local anesthetic here on the arm. And he said, you're not going to feel any pain. You might feel that you're being touched around. Something's happening. And then literally 2 minutes later, he said, okay, you're done. You can stand up and get dressed and go. And I would have imagined that you would feel as something is pushing in here because it's beyond where the anesthetic was. I did not feel a thing. And now I have this tube here, although you can only you can see just the tip. And so that's what I'm going to do all the rest of the chemo through from now on. This can be kept up to 6 months.
Do you have the portacatheter now?
It's still in me, but they're going to remove it most likely at the end of next week.
With surgery or...
No, magic.
Cool. Now it was like, maybe they were like, look over there, and then and just yank it out.
No, it's surgery, but it's, as the doctor said, it's much less delicate surgery because putting it in, they have to find the right vein and make sure it's good, and there are some risks involved with that. Here, I think it's basically surgery for dummies, because, I mean, there's already a scar. So the guy can just, okay, I'll cut along this scar, go in, and then probably pops out like a champagne cork. I have had to, though. I was saying, you were saying earlier that, I'm doing fine, not many side effects as usual. This thrombosis blood clot does have a little bit of side effect. Most of the time it feels fine, but if I walk and I have my arm vertically rather than horizontally for 10 minutes, then I really start feeling that left arm is a lot fatter.
Okay.
So now I'm taking blood thinners as well to hopefully solve this problem as soon as possible, and hopefully the removal of the portacath will help too.
Because, I mean, most blood clots, if I remember correctly, is a result of not enough hydration. So did they not give you enough, or was it more like a local thing because of all the shit that's going in through the same place and clots and clogs?
I'm not quite sure. As we established, I'm not a medical doctor.
Damn it.
I don't know if most blood clots are made by water. If you say so, that might be true. But I just know, and the little I know, is that chemo treatments do tend to give more possibility of forming blood clots.
I mean, I'm just thinking from a perspective of, it makes sense that if the thicker your blood is, the more likelihood of a blood clot you will get, and the thinner it is, aka how much liquid you get in your body, is positive.
I do believe, though, that blood clots also form around
Christmas.
Obviously, wounds. No, that's Santa blood clots. I thought that was going to work, but it doesn't. I think blood clots can also form around wounds or something. I may be completely wrong here, but when they insert a piece of something into your body, even though it's a doctor who knows what he's doing, it's still creating a wound of some kind. So it could potentially just be because of the surgery.
I like the fact that this has turned into our hypothetical medical show, where we're constantly like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Who knows? No one will ever know, because we're not going to open an anatomy book.
Yeah, we might give a few more details next week, maybe, if we look into it a little.
I refuse to do research. Also, I can't pay attention. We've already established that.
We've established that.
I appreciate the fact that the jewelry aspect of your energy stones revealed that your arm was blowing into epic proportions, but have the people who have given you the energy stones said, oh, it was the energy stones that saved you? Because I'm going to be the skeptic there.
They didn't tell me that, but I thanked them for having given it to me, because I don't know if it saved me, but it made me notice the problem sooner, that's for sure. So,
I mean, alternative medicine just became even more vague.
Well, we have unlicensed medical doctors like us talking about alternative medicine that we don't really understand. How could it not be vague?
We actually have a responsibility here, because we're talking about shit that can save, change, and end lives, and we don't know what we're talking about. And a lot of people have told us that they're actually learning something from this show.
If I learned anything from the movies, with great responsibility comes great power, right?
Exactly. Or absolument. Or absolutely. Do you eat as much as you did in the beginning? How's your appetite?
My appetite is fine. I literally, half an hour before we started recording this, my dad made me a plate of pancakes and bacon and eggs that was covered in maple syrup.
How very Canadian of you.
Absolutely.
And you're weighing yourself every week, right?
Absolutely, every day, pretty much.
So have you noticed any fluctuations in your weight?
Yeah, well, I started out before the first chemo, I was a little bit under my sort of normal expected weight. Because of the weeks I get highly hydrated, my weight is quite different depending what time of the day you measure me. And it's sort of fake weight, as my doctor called it.
Yeah.
At one point, you weigh me in the evening, at the end of the day, and then I weighed myself again 3 hours later, and I weighed 2.5 kilos less.
Okay.
But that's just because I went to the bathroom twice and peed for 1.5 liters.
Would you consider that you eat more now than back when you were cancer-free in general?
Probably not, really.
I'm just saying, considering you in the first episode promised that you would be a big, fat, jolly cancer patient, and the fact that your white beard is growing out, you're gonna be employed for Christmas, my friend.
That sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Cancer Claus.
The Cancer Claus. That's the movie. Disney, if you're watching us, we have lots of ideas for you. Hey, little Timmy, what did you ask for Christmas? Lymphoma.
I'm coming, but I have one clause in my contract. What clause is that? Cancer claws.
Also, Santa, do you have tons of presents in your sack? No, just one ball.
That's disgusting, Santa. Shut up, kid. You don't know pain.
I don't know where to go from here.
So this was an interesting episode. Once again, no factual knowledge, a lot of kind of like that stuff. I'm happy to hear that you don't have blood clots anymore. Let's hope it stays that way.
I do have blood clots.
All right, but
They're just being dealt with right now, but they're still there.
yeah, but I mean, they're aware of them.
Well, yeah, but it's not the same thing being aware of them as not having them. It's like they know I have cancer. I'm not cured yet.
This is true, but there was a time when you had cancer and no one, including yourself, knew about it.
Ah, it was a happy time.
Back in May 2021, when me and my cancer was all alone.
I remember it fondly.
Not to once again draw attention away from your cancer, but while I'm being checked for the ADD, they're also doing a brain scan on my head to see if I have potential nuclear aneurysms lying there, because most of my family does apparently, and most of my family are already dead from that. And if they find out I have that, they can operate it, they can remove it, and I'll be fine. But if nobody checks and one day it pops, then you'll be the only host of this show.
Okay, well, my suggestion is get it checked by a real doctor and not by me.
Yes.
And not by, like, YouTube either, even though we like all the people watching on YouTube.
So I think once again we've pushed the limits of our audience tolerance, and we're nearing the end of yet another explosive episode of this cancer journey.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I hope you're still here. One thing I did hear, you were talking about you're not so much for these alternative methods of treatment. One thing I did hear, which works, apparently cancer responds really, really well to likes and subscribe, please. It's worth a shot.
That's funny. It's weird because we say like and subscribe, but you don't. It's only like a few very nice friends of Joseph who do it locally, but we really mean it, because this is not for our sake, for other cancer patients out there, other victims, other what's the word when you're not a victim, when you're related to people, when you're like
You're a survivor.
Is that the next of, not next of kin, but like
you mean just family and friends of victims?
Isn't there a word for that?
Probably.
Affected, the affected ones. Isn't that like a word, like a thingy?
Possibly. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a linguologist either.
But
that's not even a word.
But English is your joint first language.
Okay, well then tell me the word in Norwegian and I'll translate it for you.
Pårørende.
Ah, yeah, don't know that one.
Great. Good call. To all you pårørende out there, we're on your team.
I would do that too, but then I'd hit the portacath and something might like blow a blood clot out my ass or something.
Nice.
Anyway, I think we can basically wrap that up there.
Like a removed tumor.
Yeah, I was going to say wrap it up, make it into a ball and throw it in the...
Space Jam.
Thanks. So back to the beginning. Cyclical ideas. So clever.
Here we are on Moron Mountain. Look out for our live episode from Moron Mountain in a few weeks. That's going to happen.
At some point it will, but there will be a new episode before that in a week, 10 days or so. As we've said before, we don't have a fixed schedule because cancer is not like a train.
It's the cancer train! The cancer train!
All aboard! Maybe just one last, just in case. And remember, so yeah, we'll see you again pretty soon, in a week or so. Until then, touch your balls. Touch everybody's balls.